Hello there, and welcome to a very special episode of the Star Wars Universe podcast. This episode, we are going to be doing something slightly different than normal, and is the start of a series that I mentioned in episode 22. And joining me for the first time, the final member of the SPARC Jedi Council to join me, by no means the least, Todd Sedlacek. Todd, how are you?
Oh, that's very nice, James. I feel so warm and welcome from across the pond.
We are here today to talk about the first three books of the Fate of the Jedi series from Legends. And those books are Outcast, Omen, and Abyss. I really liked the naming convention of this series, this 9-book series, which is snappy titles. You've got Fate of the Jedi, which is quite a long title, and then you just go, but when you're talking about I'm reading Outcast, I'm reading Omen, it's just easy, isn't it? Rather than I'm reading Heir to the Empire or Survivor's Quest. Like this, they could be anything really. It's just snappy, one word, 4 letters, 5 letters occasionally. It's just really, really good. And I think they did it with Legacy of the Force as well, didn't they?
Yeah. I believe if memory serves, both the Legacy of the Force series and the Fate of the Jedi series are all one-word titles. The words in the Fate of the Jedi series get longer as time goes on. I mean, you've got titles like Conviction, Ascension, Apocalypse.
Yeah,
I believe. Yeah. So it's you get into the multisyllabic titles, the deeper you get into the storyline.
The more that's going on, the more letters you get. They have to earn those letters in the early books.
That's right.
But I thought it'd be interesting to obviously bring you on and have a chat with you about this book series, because actually I have read previously the first 3 books. I remembered the broad strokes of it, but nothing in detail. I was trying to figure out where I actually stopped reading. And I think it's actually about 3 or 4 chapters before the end of Abyss.
Okay.
I don't know why. I can't think back that far.
I was going to ask you, why did you put it down?
Time and where I was in my life. I think when it was coming out, I don't think was a particularly great time in my life. I think there was a lot of upheaval, and so I just stopped reading Star Wars books altogether for quite a period of time. And then the shift over from Lucas to Disney happened, and it all got decanonized. I kind of walked away a little bit. It was only a few years ago, really. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give a couple of books a go, and didn't really have the time, so I went for the audio route because I love podcasts anyway. I listen to media an awful lot. I really enjoyed it, and it just sucked me back in. It was that Godfather 3 moment of every time I try and get out, they pull me back in with a really, really good book about, I don't know, Ahsoka, and just a random character or Afra.
I don't have as visceral a dislike for Afra as I do your buddy Geode.
Don't say it. Don't say it. I'll end this cast now.
Here's my, and maybe this is because I'm an old curmudgeon and original trilogy, you know, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old, type of thing, which quite literally I have been. I was born in 71, so I don't like Afra. And maybe it's not her fault, and maybe it's the writing fault, but anybody who wises off with Vader, how do you survive that? Even one encounter, you know?
I think one of the things I see through the Vader comic is, especially in the beginning, he meets her very, very early on. And I think he's so full of guilt and remorse as to what he's done, which is quite a shift away from the Vader that was obviously introduced in the original trilogy, and even what was really presented in the prequel trilogy. They've really gone down a route of he is constantly full of this remorse and anger and upset about what happened with Padme.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he sees little bits of Padme in a lot of different people. The fire in Aphra, the I'm going to say this because it needs to be said. And I think that gives him an element of respect, and she's also quite useful.
Okay.
So he'll tolerate
a level. I can get along with that.
As soon as she becomes not useful, he's like, nah, kill her. But that's Vader, right? Isn't it? Of like,
well, with anybody, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But it really comes through in Vader and the Vader comic, and it's.
Mm-hmm.
I have only recently started reading the actual Dr. Aphra series, and I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
But I much prefer the Aphra and Vader together in the Vader series, because she is almost like what I imagine Leia would have been like with Anakin as her dad.
Okay.
Like that teenage, I'm going to sass you, and you can't really do anything. And I know you can't really do anything. It's that sort of attitude of, because I have something you want.
Right. I have a use to you. And
yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I took it. And I think I'm looking at it through those lenses as well. Of
okay. Yeah. That, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. And I think maybe I'll give the Dr. Aphra series a shot and look at it through, maybe look at it through that lens.
Yeah, I'd say it's worth a try. Mm-hmm. The first trade paperback is a decent story, mm-hmm. and it's definitely worth a try. I think they did it as a audio drama as well. The first trade paperback. I think there's a Dr. Aphra audio drama. Maybe give that a try if you're not sort of a particular fan of reading her, because at least then going forward reading, you can sort of go, this is how she says things, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little bit. I haven't actually listened to it, but I would imagine the way she answers him is a little bit cheeky, a little bit, as you say, sassy, and it's just like pushing her luck a little bit. But we've gone off on a massive Darth Vader, Dr. Aphra tangent, haven't we? Bringing it back around. So we are looking at the Fate of the Jedi series, and this, to me, I look at this series as what turned out to be the final series of books, but really started its journey way back in the timeline to Era of the Empire with the introduction of the twins.
Mm-hmm.
For anyone who is not familiar with Legends, this is going to be a very whistle-stop tour of where we go. I'm not going to spoil anything majorly. I'm not going to go into too much detail until we get to Fate of the Jedi. So we have Han and Leia have twins, Jason and Jaina. They then have a third child called Anakin. We then flash forward through all the Thrawn stuff, and we go into the New Jedi Order with the Yuzong Vong invasion. Jason, Jaina, and Anakin are all teenagers or young adults. I'm not entirely sure of the ages of them at that point in time, but they all go through the Yuzong Vong War. The first book, Anakin has quite a major role in quite a major character's demise. All I'll say is roaring at a moon is the most Wookiee way to die.
All right. Well, you kind of danced around it, but I think
can I get away with not saying no? Let's just say Wookiee. It's Chewie.
It's Chewbacca, and I remember, and that happened I think it happened in the first book.
It does, Vector Prime.
Of the Yuuzhan, Vector Prime. I very rarely get misty-eyed when I'm reading, but much like he goes out like a boss, though.
Oh, absolutely.
He does. I mean, he's literally standing on, getting crushed by a moon.
The way I read it, so I read it. I didn't read the New Jedi Order as they came out. I read it many years later.
Yeah.
And when I read that first book, I didn't know anything about the Yuzon Vong. I'd seen them mentioned in books that were set later. And so I went back, read this book, and the way I saw it was he could go out happy because he'd actually paid his life debt to Han at that point by saving Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought the poetic justice of that demise, coupled with possibly the most badass death of a main character we've ever seen at this point in time, is just awesome.
Yeah.
It was the best death Chewie could have had.
Yeah, and the resulting kind of tension between Han and his son Anakin, sprinkled its way through the next several books.
Yes, absolutely. But through the course of the New Jedi Order, Jason in particular gets a lot more powerful in the Force, and he demonstrates some very unique Force abilities throughout. He survives. Him and Jaina both survive the Yuzon Vong War. We then move into the Legacy of the Force, which is the immediate aftermath of the Yuzon Vong War, the rebuilding again of the galaxy following a external threat in this instance, because the Yuzon Vong come from a different galaxy. Where are we seeing this elsewhere currently? Jason is very, very powerful in the Force. He's a Jedi Master. His Padawan is Luke and Mara Jade's son, Ben. Jason, slowly through the course of Legacy of the Force, falls to the dark side, culminating in book number 5, where he takes out someone very, very important. I'm not going to spoil this one because it's an incredible book. I may do a series on Legacy of the Force because it's actually one of my favorite book series in Star Wars, which cements him as Darth Caedus, which is also a really cool name.
I entered the Darth Who contest, by the way.
Did you?
Yeah, when the book series was originally coming out, I mean, it was by book 4, it was obvious he was, eventually going to be a Sith Lord. So they held a Darth Who contest, and everybody got to, everybody submitted names, and mine was actually kind of close to Caedus. It was Cambius.
Okay.
And that's a screen name that I use. Actually, if you look, it's my screen name on Galaxy of Heroes.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's that Caedus is a great name. Caedus, I also say Caedus interchangeably.
I've heard both, but in the audiobooks of Fate of the Jedi, they say Caedus. So I generally try and stick to what they say in the books. But I've heard both, and I've said both.
Yeah, that's actually, if it's said that way in the audiobooks, then that's the way you say the name. It's the same thing with Jorah Sabaoth.
Yeah, see, I always called him Joris Kaboth.
Kaboth. Or I was like Saboth.
I just look at it and go, whatever pops into my head when I'm reading it, that's what they are forever known as. But I like the fact that in the Star Wars audio books, they still make Lando call him Han instead of Han. So they still get that incorrect pronunciation into there as it's almost like a little Easter egg at this point in time. Jason is eventually defeated at the end of this 9-book series. The culmination of it is fantastic. Who defeats him is tragic and heartbreaking for a multitude of reasons. Again, something I don't really want to spoil. But
and there's a little bit at the end, like right at the end there was a kind of like, oh, is he coming back to the light? Kind of.
There is a moment, yeah,
which was kind of cool.
Yes, and I remember it's that sort of a very open to interpretation moment, isn't it? Much like we had in at the end of the Darth Bane trilogy, of did Bane survive and take over Zana's body?
Right.
And I love those sort of open-ended question marks of did he return or did he just stay and get defeated and killed as a Sith Lord?
Right.
But through all of these, what, 28 books, 19 in the New Jedi Order and 9 in Legacy of the Force. Obviously, the Jedi's reputation has taken a little bit of a pounding here. Through
you could say that.
Yeah, through the it's not the New Republic, it's the Galactic Alliance now, isn't it?
It's the full. I'm glad you said that, because I don't know if you've ever realized it. The full name is the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances, GFFA, Galaxy Far, Far Away. It was that was purposeful.
Absolutely, I love stuff like that. I'd never noticed that. I never realized it because I always just see it as GA, and so I love that.
When I read and they said said the full name of it was shortened to Galactic Alliance, because Galactic Federation of Free Alliances, that's a mouthful.
Well, and also if you look at the wording of it, it's not a republic.
No,
it's a group, and they actually bring in the Imperial Remnant as one of the alliances, and they all have a seat around the table, which is a really different way of doing it. Obviously, we've gone down the New Republic route in terms of canon, and we do have a New Republic in the Heir to the Empire books, but Fate of the Jedi, Legacy of the Force, they're all set around about 30 years later, aren't they, from memory? There's quite a lot that goes on. Part of the Legacy of the Force is Jason tries to seduce Ben to the dark side, and Ben meets Ship in this, doesn't he? The Sith sphere, meditation sphere, and that plays a part in Fate of the Jedi as well.
A huge part.
It's I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes at this point in time. But we end up with a chief of state called Darla at the end of Legacy of the Force, and that takes us into Fate of the Jedi, which is very much going to be the fallout of the New Jedi Order and Legacy of the Force book runs. Starting with the first book, Outcast, straight out the gate, no spoilers. Do you have a number ranking for how much you enjoyed this as an intro book? I know I'm putting you completely on the spot here. We have not discussed this before, and it's just popped into my head.
I'd say probably 3.5 to 4 out of 5.
Okay,
because it was it, and the reason I say that is, thinking back, if you hadn't read the preceding Legacy of the Force books, like the price of entry, so to speak, wasn't that big. I mean, because they kind of cover the broad strokes of why we are where we are, with at the end of the Legacy of the Force appointing Luke, signing off on appointing Dala as the head of state to replace Cadus, which kind of doesn't turn out well for him, but we'll talk about that in a bit. You really didn't need to know too much. So as a starting off point, it was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's been a long time since I read Legacy of the Force. Again, I remember the broad strokes of it, and I remember the main points of it. Not maybe so much of the detail, but it's a fantastic book series. And I've always kind of looked at this Fate of the Jedi series as it is a direct continuation. And so Legacy of the Force, at the very least, is almost required reading. I do think Legacy of the Force is a good jumping in point if you're quite new to, or at the time when it was just the expanded universe. Legacy of the Force was quite a good jumping in point. It had all the big characters. It mentions why Chewie isn't there. The second book is solely revolving around Boba Fett, which is always a fan pleaser. So yeah, I would have said, in terms of accessibility, my score probably would have been around about the 3.5. Quality of the story, 4.5. I would say it was a really good, tight story. So yeah, probably averaging out somewhere in the 3.5 to 4 region as well. one piece of key information I didn't mention earlier is naturally Luke Skywalker is the Grand Master of the Jedi Order. That's quite a key piece of information for the entry level to this book. Going into this book, as you've already said, Luke has signed off on Darla being awarded, elected, assigned.
She was appointed. It was basically, I think the way they put it at the end of Legacy of the Force was she was appointed. And, you know, it's important to note that she was a former Imperial Grand Admiral.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that was part of why she was looked upon as a possible candidate for that by Luke, simply because the way the fate of the Legacy of the Force kind of played out, you needed somebody that had no ties to the Galactic Alliance.
Yeah, and no loyalty left to Cadus and his ways of doing things. So it made sense. It did make sense at the time for Luke to back her as a head of state or chief of state. The opening passages of the book, the opening section of the book is very much centered around this fallout and what the government are going to do about it, because they do see the Jedi as actually fast becoming the threat, because they keep going bad and trying to take over the galaxy, and they don't really see the differences between Jedi and Sith. They see Sith as just fallen Jedi. That was one thing that really stuck out to me when I was listening to that book, and I was like, that's a really, from the average Joe's perspective, they've all got laser swords and they've all got magic powers, and one group are good and one group are bad, but the bad group only seem to be made up currently of people who used to be in the good group. So
in fact, she's Chief Dala was having a conversation. I think it may have been with her chief of staff, or maybe even one of the Mandalorians that, you know, she ends up dealing with, that, you know, they're one and the same, basically.
And they are, really. It's something I really can't argue with in the way she puts it.
Well, from her point of view. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
a classic Star Wars trope.
Well, it is, but it fits, it tracks, because it all depends on, you know, like if you're a lay person, so to speak, you know, you don't have the Force and you can't feel it, and it doesn't call to you. Like you said, they all have laser swords and they can all do things that seem like magic.
Yeah. The upshot of it is Darla basically says, we need someone to pay for Cadus's crimes. He's no longer here, and because of what keeps happening with Jedi going rogue, there is also an inciting incident to this as well, which I'll get into in just a second. She decides to put Luke Skywalker, and she tries to put the entire Jedi Order on trial, but she concedes to just Luke Skywalker going on trial for the crimes committed by his organization. The inciting incident for this is one of the Jedi Knights is sat at home with his parents and all of a sudden sees them as imposters. No warning, no real trigger event, just turns around serving breakfast and all of a sudden imposters everywhere. And he goes on a little bit of a rampage. Not really a rampage. He goes on a little bit of a run through the streets, getting all excited and demanding to know what they've done with everyone. Everyone he can see is an imposter. So he's gone crazy. They do say that he's gone crazy.
Essentially, yes.
And I can't remember who stops him, but there is then a little bit of a bicker and a fight as to who's going to take custody of him. And Darla pulls rank as chief of state and freezes him in carbonite.
Right.
Which is given explanation that this is one of the most horrific things you can do to someone. Obviously, it hits very close to home in terms of Han Solo. He makes his feelings very clear on the matter. They won't let anyone near him, and they won't let anyone assess him, and certainly not the Jedi. So that's kind of the inciting incident for the entire 9-book series. What did you think of the inciting incident and the way it's handled and written?
It was really interesting because just to have the way it was written and just, it was like flipping a switch.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden, Valen is looking at his sister, but it's not his sister. She's been replaced. Then his father, then his mother, and he ignites his lightsaber, and so his father, Coran Horn, ignites his lightsaber, and they fight, and he gets out of there, and like you said, he's running through the streets, and I want to say it's, and I'm gonna murder her name, the Moncal Jedi Master that's the healer.
Oh,
so how do you say that name? How do they? I can't remember how they say it in the books, but let's just, it's Silghal, Cilghal. She's either the one that stops him, but she's also the one that they was trying to examine him and wasn't allowed to. So I thought that was a really good sequence. And yeah, from one viewpoint, it's the inciting incident, but looked at another way, I think it was just the catalyst that Dala needed, or the excuse that Dala needed to pursue this agenda against Luke Skywalker of the Jedi are corrupt and it's Luke Skywalker's fault that Darth Caedus came to be. And well, if you doubt me, look at this. Jedi are just starting to go insane randomly. And where are you at
attacking
on that?
Whoever they want? Who's
exactly? So it was
who's governing them
exactly, and so to her, credit, it was a masterful stroke that she latched onto that incident, and as we learn, that's a recurring theme throughout pretty much the rest of the series, that just as public opinion is starting to sway back in the Jedi favor, another one starts to act all wonky.
Yeah. And one thing I both love and hate about Dala is all of this stuff's happening, and she is very, very good at twisting things to her own agenda.
Well, she's a former Imperial, so
I mean, but it's completely on the fly. It's something happens and she will just take 5 or 10 seconds and just go, see, this just proves my point from earlier. And it's frightening how quickly it happens. And I'm sure, obviously, I'm reading this as a book that an author has probably spent several hours at any given time going, how is she going to turn this to her advantage?
Right. Yeah.
It's not literally 5 or 10 seconds. It's in the context of the book that they come up with this stuff. But the way she is able to slip through all of this stuff and still be perceived as the good guy, which obviously, as the reader, as the Star Wars fans, are generally pretty supportive of the Jedi Order. Certainly were when these were coming out. I don't know about now. It's a little bit more up in the air, I think. But the Jedi are the good guys, and we are meant to believe that and root for them throughout all of these stories. The fact that this keeps getting turned, and as I say, she ends up putting Luke Skywalker on trial with her judge, who
her appointed judge, and she's stacking the court.
Absolutely.
Sound familiar?
I mean, yeah, I was going to say it's not drawing any parallels before its time at all, is it? The upshot of it is Luke Skywalker is exiled from Coruscant and from the Jedi Order for 10 years. I believe he's allowed to keep his rank as Grand Master, but he is not allowed to communicate with anyone else within the Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm. Nor receive any assistance afterwards.
No, he is completely excommunicated, sent off on his own for 10 years, do not come back for that period of time. And when that sentence is brought down upon him, Ben Skywalker, his son, because I know a lot of people hear the word Ben, think either Obi-Wan Kenobi or
Solo.
Or Solo. There's too many Bens in Star Wars. I never thought I'd say that. He signs up to go with him, and he effectively resigns from the Jedi Order because otherwise they would immediately be breaking the rules of it. And Luke and Ben set off in their ship, whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Jade Shadow.
The Jade Shadow, thank you. They make the decision, after conversing with the rest of the Jedi Council at the last Jedi Council meeting that Luke is at, that he is going to follow Jason's path through the galaxy when he went on, I think it was a 5-year hiatus to go and explore different Force-using groups and learn more about the Force. And this is where he gets all his weird and wonderful powers from.
Yeah, and that was set in that 5-year journey. If memory serves, it was set in between the Great Swarm War, the Killiks,
yeah,
and the beginning of the Yuuzhan Vong War. It's basically Jason returns from that 5 years, and then bang, the Yuuzhan Vong invade the galaxy, and hilarity ensues.
I'm not quite sure I'd say hilarity, but it's some horrible war crimes occur.
Well, trillions of people died. I mean,
it's a Tuesday in Star Wars, isn't it? But yeah, so Luke's, even though this whole thing has happened and Luke is taking the blame and he's shouldering the blame for the whole thing, partly because he does feel responsible, but partly he is saying, right, well, this is now an opportunity for me to go and figure out why Jason fell. And he goes through what they know of his journeys, which in the first instance is very little, very, very little indeed. And they want to figure out, because they think that the psychosis that the Jedi Knights are experiencing is related to something Jason did or experienced or witnessed, and they think that there is a link between them. The dark side of the Force and everything is all working together, and it's Cadus wasn't the end, basically.
Right.
I'm just trying to think, did they meet anyone from Jason's journey in Outcast towards the end of the book?
I know they went to see the Barando sages on Doran, Keldor, which is...
They meet the Ang-T in book 2.
Yeah, they meet the Ang-T in book 2. They meet the Barando sages, but I can't remember if Jason crossed paths with them. I can't remember if anybody in particular came across Jason, but I know for sure the next group, the Ang-T, certainly.
That's it. So I think, yes, so they do meet the Barando sages in Outcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke learns the weather manipulation skills.
Yeah, the Hassad Dur or whatever. Okay, yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's where, because Jason learned that technique too.
Yes, absolutely. And they have a little jaunter along their world to uncover this weird situation where they're faking their death because basically they're scared.
Well, they're preparing for another Jedi purge.
Yes. And they think that's going to extend to all Force users.
Something occurred to me as we were talking about that. The idea for this journey that Luke and Ben go on is Valen Horn was exhibiting a force power using that Hassat Dur technique that Jason had learned. So they thought, hey, that's a good start to the investigation to potentially clear Luke's name, that Jason's slide to the dark side was inevitable and not preventable.
Yeah, that's a very good and key piece of information, actually. That yes, that's what's prompted the investigation. The sudden ability to use force powers that they previously didn't know. And spoiler alert for the next couple of books, that happens again and again and again on Coruscant as more Jedi succumb to this sickness. So we have a couple in this book, so it's not just a one and done. So yeah, and Luke and Ben utilize their negotiation skills, and also Ben utilizes his fighting skills to sort out the whole situation with the if you fear something and hide from it, then you're more likely to actually bring it about kind of attitude of actually you need to go out and spread this message of your order and not just hide away in a cave with a select few. You're going to damage yourselves doing that way. And they get that all sorted. That's kind of each group seems to have its own little mini boss to overcome along this journey, which is good fun. And the Barando sages point them on the way to the Angti monks, who are located in the Moor, which is quite a big deal in the Legends universe. Do you want to explain why?
Well, the Maw is a collection of black holes that are protecting an area of space that up until this point in this series we don't understand why, but pretty quickly we figure out what was the whole reason for the Maw, and the legend is that the Celestials themselves, who are basically, if you remember the Mortis arc from Clone Wars, it's the mother, or not the mother. The father and the son and the daughter that represent the Force and it's all its aspects, and the father is so they were essentially the first group of Celestials or of that ilk. They created or arranged the black holes such that something they were protecting would be unable to get out. Dala actually, it was also, the Maw was used by the Empire and Emperor Palpatine in Legends to house like his super secret projects for super weapons and whatnot, and Dala was in charge of that fleet. I think they called it the Maw Irregular Fleet or something like that. And so there's a lot going on out in the Maw, and I think even the Maw makes not quite in its form as depicted in Legends, but the Maw makes a cameo appearance in Solo when they're doing when they're going through the Kessel Run.
Yes, and it's also probably quite a large inspiration for the Wayfinders traversing the way to Exegol. That's kind of Maw-esque, isn't it? But they also, during the Yuzon Vong War, they also hid a lot of the Jedi younglings and Padawans in the Maw to protect them from the Yuzon Vong. So it's all sort of coming together. It's all linked. And this is one of the things I absolutely loved about Legends, is how they
It was
took these
interconnected.
ideas and they interconnected them. And it was not just, I'm just going to go off and write this thing and it's going to be a thing. It was what came before it. They had the story groups, they had the writers, they had everything, and they got it down, which I think will start happening as we get more and more canon stuff, Disney canon stuff.
Hopefully, but it's also the reason why, and as much as it irritated me at the time, they wiped away all of that canon. It was beginning to collapse on its own weight, under its own weight.
Yeah.
Just because, like you said, everything is interconnected, and you've really got there were landmines everywhere as far as a storytelling process. And that's why I think it was good from a certain standpoint when Disney came in. They just wiped that all away, because then you didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And they can pick and choose what they wanted to bring in.
But Disney has not been doing a great job, at least in the novels, of linking things together. High Republic is a good start. But
High Republic was, I think, the first real attempt at a huge overarching story. I think the comics probably are doing it slightly better than the books at the moment.
Yes.
And I think they are still doing an element of damage control from the fallout of the sequel trilogy. Because regardless of whether you like the films or not, the sequel trilogy has major timeline impact issues. And what they have done is they then had to go back and write things such as Shadows of the Sith and the Aftermath trilogy and Mando to a degree to explain what is happening 30 years after Return of the Jedi and how the First Order have risen and all the rest of it. The Legends, I think the Legends still had a little bit more time in it. I know they did have some stuff planned, which I would have quite liked to have seen and read. But they kind of went, they were having to go further and further either way, either BBY or ABY, which I think takes us quite neatly, BBY anyway, into book number 2, which is Omen. The reason I say it fits quite neatly into book number 2 is I think it's 2,500 years BBY.
Something like that. It was, it was thousands. So.
It was. We have a series of short stories, 8 of them, I believe, written by a certain John Jackson Miller, who is very, very popular in Star Wars at the moment, given the success of The Living Force.
You don't say.
Earlier this year. Well, back end of last year, wasn't it? And we're talking about the Lost Tribe of the Sith. They make an appearance in Fate of the Jedi. So again, that sort of example of it all coming together and acting as one cohesive organism. But broad strokes, did you like Omen? Were you a fan? Score out of 5?
Doing a Brian Klein here. I like everything.
Don't we all try to?
Yeah. No, I liked Omen. I'd probably give it a maybe more solidly in the 4 out of 5 category, just because I really like the concept of this Lost Tribe of the Sith. Those books that you were mentioning by John Jackson Miller that were an intro to Lost Tribe of the Sith. They came out in pieces as the Fate of the Jedi series, in between releases.
Yeah.
So you kind of got it, bits and pieces of the story as you were, the backstory of the Lost Tribe of the Sith as you were put into the present day version of the Lost Tribe of the Sith. And I think when it became apparent, and I don't think it was in these first 3 books, but when Luke eventually lets everybody know that this lost tribe is out there, somebody says, I forget who says, it's like, yeah, apparently they went from the rule of 2 to however many you want. So I thought that was kind of funny, but I like the lost tribe of the Sith, and even in fact in this, if it ever gets out of development hell, this new Jedi Order series, I think they would be perfect to be the big bad in that series, because it's untouched fertile ground. Just the hierarchical nature of the lost tribe of the Sith, and they wield the Force as if it was just another limb, effortlessly. I really thought that was interesting, and just to see that, and it's probably because of their isolation that they were able to last over all these millennia and not collapse in on themselves like the Brotherhood of Darkness did back in the days of the Bane trilogy.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really well written, and I really liked, the bringing in of the whole father-daughter aspect between, was it Gavin? I want to say it was Gavin or Gavar. Mr. Kai and Vestara Kai.
Yes. I was just trying to think of his name. Yeah, it's something like Mr. Kai will do.
Yeah, Mr. Kai. Not to be confused with Cobra Kai, but it was interesting because, even though there's a father's love for a daughter, at the same time he's a Sith Lord, and she's a Sith. She wasn't even at the level of apprentice at her introduction. She was whatever the rank was, I think, a Tyro.
Yes,
and, which is like
essentially a youngling, isn't it?
Yeah. I really enjoyed the whole inclusion of the Lost Tribe of the Sith, so that's why I liked Omen so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, obviously we bring in and we learn quite a bit about where the Lost Tribe of the Sith are now. I like the fact that Omen is also the name of the ship that crash lands on the planet, which is called Kesh. It's this, they've never been able to fix it. So they've never been able to get off world. And this is really where we get our introduction in Fate of the Jedi, anyway, to the Sith sphere, the meditation sphere that introduces itself to Ben in Legacy of the Force. It introduces itself to Vestara, not to be confused with Venestra. There's listening to these 3 books, I kept thinking, they've borrowed that. Oh, they've borrowed that. Oh, there's a lot that they've sort of taken inspiration from, shifted ever so slightly to fit into the new stuff. And I really liked that. Really, really liked that. But yeah, so she actually gets elevated because of her connection to Ship. And so she gets taken on as an apprentice and starts being trained as a Sith rather than this youngling. And I say the word youngling, we think of the Jedi younglings who are preschool, but they're not. These are teenagers. She's a teenager at this point in time, I think, or at least sort of 11, 12, akin to Anakin in episode 1. Too old to be a Jedi, but just about the right age for a Sith, turns out. All of this is going on, and it's very much a sort of a background. Every few chapters we go and check in on them. Not much more has happened. She's training. They're trying to get Ship to talk to them. They're trying to get Ship to help them. It kind of ticks through the book as a whole. All the while back on Coruscant, we have the Jedi Order trying to manage this situation without Luke. Han and Leia are there. Leia is a Jedi Master in her own right at this point in time. They still have council meetings. Kyle Katarn is there. Some really big Legends names are in there. And these Jedi are just dropping a little bit like flies, and
left and right. Yep.
Left and right. They're just going crazy. One thing we haven't mentioned to date is Han and Leia's adoptive daughter.
Yes.
Who starts to become a bit more of a central character. Now, she is presented to the galaxy as Han and Leia's adoptive daughter by the name of
Amelia.
Amelia, thank you. They've adopted Amelia, whose real name is Alana, but she's actually the daughter. She's actually Han and Leia's granddaughter, the daughter of Jason Telkel, who is a queen on a planet that is quite secretive and quite fierce. They're a warrior race whose name I can't remember as well, but they want to keep her parentage secret, so they've adopted her. So you have this child with them at all times who is not only their granddaughter, but is the daughter of a Sith Lord and the heir to a throne. It's quite a lot for a child to take on. They have to be very careful around how they need to make sure that they are not taken in by Darla for anything. They need to skirt just the right side of the line all the way through. Never push it too far. Always end up concede the whole way through. One thing we also haven't mentioned is Jaina is the sole solo child survivor.
The solo.
The solo. And she is in a romantic relationship. She's also a Jedi Knight. She is in a romantic relationship with the chief of state of the Imperial Remnant, who is keeping all the Moffs in order. So there's a lot of working around things. Under Luke's Jedi Order, you're allowed to get married. You're allowed to have children. Love is encouraged, but attachment is still meant to be sort of kept in line with the old ways a little bit, but it's a lot looser. Very akin to the High Republic.
Yeah.
It would seem. So we have all of these Jedi getting worse and worse, and the more that fall into this psychosis, the more it is confirming that they are children of the Maw that were hidden there during the Yuzon Vong War. And we are looking at all of this stuff. They're trying to get one or two just so they can keep an eye on them, do some medical work with them, run some scans. They get a couple. I think it's in Omen where Jaina and a group of others try to steal the carbonite, the trapped in carbonite other Jedi, and they discover, much to their horror, which it is pretty horrific, that these are hung up, these carbonite slabs. If you think back to Jabba's palace, Han Solo, just pick that up and put that into Darla's office with multiple Jedi. They play it well. They bring the press with them.
Yeah, it's the brother and sister, Valen and Gisela Horn, that are being hung up and displayed like artwork in this guy's office.
Yes, which is somewhat in bad taste, but just goes to show that the Imperial never really loses its loyalty to the Empire. There is this constant underlying sort of almost guerrilla warfare between the Jedi Order and the GA, and Darla's office specifically. And there are standoffs in the street when a Jedi goes into a psychotic episode and falls, and it's just tense. The whole lot, all of these chapters in these books they're just tense. You've got the Falcon being chased through the cityscape of Coruscant by gunships, Han screaming, "I've got a child on board," like, "What are you doing?" kind of thing.
And Alana kind of playing it up like, "Oh, I'm so scared. I'm so scared."
It's absolutely brilliant. She picks up on it so quickly, and I think the wording is it lets out a blood curdling scream, and then just
exactly.
grins at Leia and Han, and it's just like, So, yeah, we've got all of this going through. So we've got the Lost Tribe, we've got everything that's happening on Coruscant, and they don't know what's happening out in the galaxy. So they've tried to call as many Jedi back to Coruscant as they can, but they don't know who's out there, who's left, who's not heard the call, who's not checked in, and all the rest of it. They are still in contact with Luke, which is a little bit naughty, but it's through the Force only. They're not actually sending communications. It's snippets, it's little flashes of imagery or some words. Just, we're okay.
I think the way they really, where face-to-face communication is needed, it's all funneled through Ben, because
he wasn't convicted.
The letter of the law versus the spirit of the law.
Absolutely.
He's not the one that entered into that plea agreement. It was Luke. So
absolutely. So yeah, they're updating each other on the status of things in their respective quests, and Luke and Ben go silent. They tell them that they're going into the Maw, and so they're going to be silent for a while. Don't expect any more updates. Good luck, kind of thing. And they find the Ang-Ti there. Oh, they don't go to the Maw here yet, do they?
Not yet. It's
at the end they go into the Maw.
It's at the end that Luke essentially gets the call through the Force that draws him and Ben to the Maw.
Yeah, absolutely. So they go and find the Ang-Ti following the directions of the monks they met in the previous book. They learn how to flow walk, or they learn the philosophies of the Ang-Ti, which include flow walking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's Luke himself doesn't learn it. Ben, of course, being the insolent teenager that he is, and also at one point worshipped at the feet of Jason Solo, who could flow walk, obviously wants to learn it. And it's another cool back and forth between father and son, master and apprentice, that Luke, as you could imagine, because Jason Cadus used it, wasn't exactly too keen on Ben learning that power, because we're still not sure if it was having that power that led Jason down the dark path. But they sort that out, and Ben ends up learning how to flow walk, and decides, and actually does it, and decides that based on what he sees, he decides not to do it again. He flow walks back to the time of when Jason was with the Ang-Ti. It was pretty obvious that by that point he was already firmly set on that dark path, and Ben essentially didn't need to see any more, wasn't going to flow walk and try and prevent Mara's death, like Luke was afraid.
So she is the death that cements Cadus as Cadus, Jason's fall to the dark side. So flow walking is basically you can rewind back to a certain point, you can watch, but you can't interact. So it's not time travel, but it is a way to view the past and see if you can. It's meant to be so you can learn from it and see if there's a different part that you with new information, you're going back and it's a completely different take on this actually now. Jason uses it to manipulate. After he loses Ben as an apprentice, he uses it to manipulate Tahiri, who was Anakin Solo's girlfriend. And he manipulates her by utilizing his memories of Anakin and taking her back to them, and which is really horrible thing to do to someone, not just anyone, someone who was probably going to end up being your sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
It actually ends up with Tahiri, after the fall of Jason, walking away from everything and going, "Nah, I'm not Sith. I'm not Jedi. I am just a Force user at this point in time. I have the Force. I'm going to continue to use it. I have a lightsaber. I'm just going to be me." She is currently helping out a little bit here and there with Jaina and everything else back on Coruscant because, again, letter of the law against spirit of the law, she's not a Jedi. So she can do things that the Jedi sometimes can't do under this authoritarian state that they are finding themselves under. And so she is putting together and taking part in missions to undermine Darla and to try and get the guys in Carbonite back to the Jedi healer and things like that. We start to sort of draw some of the lines together, specifically with the Lost Tribe of the Sith towards the end of this book, and Luke and Ben, with Ship pushing, like, Ship brings the technology and the information they need to start building. So Ship helps them build an armada, a Sith armada, which then allows them to leave Kesh. And they do so, and Ship is leading them and directing them with the help of Vestara. And this is only sort of increasing her strength in the group of Sith we have, the importance of her to their success. And Ship targets Luke and Ben right at the end of the book, doesn't he? He says, this is who we're going after. Mm-hmm. This is who we need to find. And it kind of ends there, doesn't it? Of just like, right, let's go.
Yeah.
Going to point Luke and Ben towards the Maw and say, fairly sure Jason came from the Maw. Mm-hmm. When he came to us, he was coming from the Maw. So there's something in there that you need to go and find. Here is the coordinates. This is the vector his ship came in on or something. And these two groups are put on a collision course with each other. Mm-hmm. And that takes us into Abyss, book 3. So again, like the first two, immediate thoughts, ranking out of 5.
This one is probably more towards the 3.5 to 4. Everything is in this whole series, is at least in this first 3-book arc, is pretty good to me. There's others as we get deeper into the 9-book series that, you know, we'll cover when you get to them. But this is because we're focusing on the Lost Tribe of the Sith and how Ship says, well, Sith, if you want to regain control of the galaxy after being in hiding for all these millennia, here's who you need to go after. This is the Jedi to beat all Jedi. And they basically, you know, they were put on a collision course at the end of Abyss, or at the end of Omen, and that they collide in spectacular fashion during Abyss. And their confrontation in the, I think it's called Sinkhole Station in the Maw, was pretty epic. And I think it was really cool. So you know what, I'll say 4 out of 5.
Fair enough. I think it's probably, for me, it's certainly the book that I remembered the most. Mm-hmm. I think it has, at this point in time, the most going on. We've had the 2-book setup, putting all the pieces on the board and moving them just enough to get everything going. And this one really gets going. Mm-hmm. It's the story finally, for me, really hitting its stride. I think that there is a lot of good in this book, and there's very little There's very little fat that could be trimmed off of it.
Right. And there's some really great esoteric uses of the Force. I mean, you know, the going beyond shadows and which, if memory serves, this came out before the whole I think it almost certainly did come out before the whole concept of the world between worlds.
Yeah, that was a Disney creation.
Yeah,
that was
so
season 3 of
Rebels.
Yeah. So I mean, Disney creation.
So I'm almost certain Filoni drew some from this whole concept of world beyond shadows and interjected it into the world between worlds, and it was really cool, and it was, you know, shows that it still is debatable whether or not it was like an actual place that you were traveling to, or if it was simply within your mind, much like Ahsoka being in the world between worlds during her series. And, you know, it was, so I know some fans, and specifically some original trilogy fans, have a kind of an irritation or a problem with the concept of the world between worlds, because it's like the ultimate Etch-a-Sketch. You can just shake it and reset things to the way you want them to be. And much like with flow walking, are you really resetting them to the way you want things to be, or was it always the original will of the Force that would happen?
I think for me, in that regard, going back a step to whether it's a physical place or a mental place, I think it was presented very much in Rebels as a physical place, and Ezra obviously interacts with the events of the season 2 finale, Twilight the Apprentice, and saves Ahsoka.
Right.
Whether that is the will of the Force and should have happened, it's that catch-22 of time travel, of you can't actually change the past, because if you go back to the past to change it, you've already done it because it's in the past. And so everything that is happening now is happening because you went back and changed it. And then it obviously branches off into multiverse theory and all the other...
And then my headache starts.
Yeah. And it's like, right, what laws of time travel are we working with this time?
Right.
Okay. And I think they skirted just the right side of the line in terms of, it's not time travel. It's a way to access the Force, to carry out the will of the Force. But Palpatine was trying to get in there to change history and to control the Force, which is probably one of the reasons why he never truly succeeded. But then in Ahsoka, it's presented very differently. It's a much more spiritual place. Her mind goes there, which very much falls in line with how it's discussed and presented in Abyss. So I would also give this book somewhere in the region of a 4 to 4.5 out of 5. I think it was a brilliant book. I thought it was the best of the 3. But that's not to diminish the other 2. You need the other 2 to make this one the best of the 3. Yeah, we are introduced to this group of people, which actually includes a Jedi Knight who goes missing years ago. So Luke knows someone.
Qualo mode.
That's the chappy. So Luke and Ben find this group of people in the moor, and they have a chat between themselves. And Luke agrees that it's going to be him.
They have a chat.
They do. They have a little chat. Who's doing this? Rock, paper, scissors. And Luke pulls rank and says, "No, I'm going to do this. You need to not do this. It needs to be one or the other, not both. Because if we both do it, who's going to look after our physical form?" Which is a very, very good point, which Ben just would not have thought of because he's a teenager. So Luke goes ahead and does it. Ben's very bored. There's a lot of Ben being bored. There's a couple of people who sort of come back to their bodies and pretty much just eat Ben and Luke out of house and home because they're so malnourished. Luke is just sort of floating in this place physically, but his mind is obviously traveling way off. He's being guided through, it's called the Force Beyond, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
During this, he keeps being tested at various points of, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And actually, it's a mixture of pass and fail for Luke, because he's constantly trying to second guess, what did Jason do? Because he's trying to recreate Jason's journey. And actually, it's not about Jason. It's about him making his own choices. And he learns that as a lesson throughout this whole process. And then they send him into a place called Beyond Shadows, where he meets a delightful person by the name of Abeloth. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
And Abeloth is a name that has been thrown around a lot since the Ahsoka season 1 finale.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of semi-prompted me to do this, to be perfectly honest. It's
okay.
to do this reread and new read for the rest of the series. And so you alluded to Abeloth earlier. We've now named her as the Mother, to go along with the Mortis gods, who aren't actually named in the books, legends, as the Mortis gods or the father, the daughter, and the son. I don't think.
Well, that whole connection, that's, again, spoiler alert, that's that whole connection between Abeloth and the Mortis gods comes later,
right,
in the 9-book series, and so we can go deeper into that then. But yeah, there's just a preview. There is some, apparently, that they discover that there's some connection between Abeloth and the Mortis gods, and she is, the way she's introduced in Abyss is, which is quite appropriately titled book, because when you think about it, right, you're now staring down into the abyss, and Abeloth is quite literally an abyss of the dark side of the Force. I mean, she is I think they estimate like 25,000-year-old being that is like all powerful, can shapeshift, can control basically anything and everybody. And as the kiddos are fans of saying, she's a bit OP, but she's very OP. As we get deeper into her impact on this story, I'll give my thoughts about that. But just by that whole statement alone, I think you can pretty much tell where I fall, as far as excessively OP characters. Quite frankly, throughout this whole book series, Luke Skywalker himself is a very overpowered character. And
that's really highlighted through the back end of what was released in Legends. It was, okay, what can Luke Skywalker not do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, he even, in the first couple of books, and as they meet these various Force using groups, I mean, there's even a little bit of competition, as much as Luke probably wouldn't want to admit it. He always manages to find out who learned the technique faster, him or Jason.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of uncle-nephew rivalry going on. So
absolutely. And I think that's just Luke kind of being still the farm boy Luke that we were first introduced to in the OT. And I like it. And I like the fact that Luke is pretty overpowered, because he kind of should be. He's Luke Skywalker. He's the one. I don't care what the prophecy says. He is the one who actually restored balance to the Force. Yes, Vader picked up Palpatine and threw him down the shaft, but it was because of Luke. Luke was the catalyst for that to happen. Luke bested Vader in combat. Luke is the one who did it all.
Mm-hmm.
And that they really ran with that in the expanded universe when it was called that, and then obviously converted to Legends. But they do have Luke fail at certain times as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in this, Luke bites off more than he can chew with Abeloth.
Yeah,
he is getting beaten here, and it's a will of the Force element from memory, and Abeloth was winning. He was going to be stuck with Abeloth forevermore.
Yeah,
and it's actually Ben that disobeys his father and goes and rescues him and brings his spirit back to his body, sort of preventing him from being stuck there, so they can continue their journey. Which really, as an introduction to Abeloth as a character, like, you couldn't have picked a better character to best in their opening gambit.
Just to give you an idea of quite how powerful she is, and
dangerous. So it's a huge entrance for Abeloth into the series, and it's very much telegraphed as, here's your big bad, here's who we're here to, here's who the baddie is of the series. Like, you think the Lost Tribe of the Sith,
like you thought it was the Lost Tribe of the Sith, but wait, there's more.
Yeah, that classic. Yeah, it hints at what's out there in the galaxy no one can comprehend. And I really like it. I really do like it. And actually, the interaction with Abeloth just kind of solidifies Luke's resolve. I think he wasn't on sort of holiday mode, but he was enjoying himself a little bit too much, and he's gone, oh, okay, no, I need to put my big boy pants on now.
Oh, wait a minute, this is getting serious. So hey, I'm gonna have to get running here pretty soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So he it sort of gives him the jolt he needs. On Coruscant, it's more of the same, really. We have a little fun side mission with Han and Leia and Alana, where they go to an animal show, an animal fair type thing, like a market where you can buy all these exotic, dangerous animals. So, and I do like the fact they mention a number of Acklays are mentioned. What's the big bull one with the horns from the Geonosian Arena? The Reek, that's the one. Nexus are mentioned. Rancors are there, obviously. Who doesn't want to buy a Rancor? Nerfs are there. Dewbacks are there, I think. Like, loads of classic Star Wars creatures. And one of the Jedi who is there to protect them goes into a psychosis. And because she thinks everyone is an imposter, releases the animals.
Every single one of them. And chaos ensues, understandably so. Long story short, Alana ends up with a Nexu cub. Yeah.
Because the mother Nexu is killed in this whole situation.
It's funny, if you look at her Wikipedia entry, the image that's used of her, it's a picture of her with the Nexu with all these teeth, and quite possibly Angie, that's it. Worst pet ever.
Yeah,
I think even Han was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, Han is just like, really?
Let's just get her a Ronto.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's get her like a space dog, but no, you get her a space cat instead. Like, really? But yeah, I love it. Yeah, we have more and more Jedi dropping. We have the ongoing tensions. This is actually causing and putting on more and more pressure onto the Jedi Order. The stand-in for Luke is starting to take more and more ownership of the Jedi, which in this instance, he's asking people to call him Grandmaster, even though Luke is. He's asking people to delegate decisions solely to him, and he's giving more and more way to the Galactic Alliance. And it's just a really, again, it's just more of the same, but like with the smattering of these interesting how are they going to fall next? Sort of.
Right. And which of the myriad of esoteric force powers that Jason picked up along the way are they going to exhibit?
Yes, and it's even sort of silly things like one of them is really bad at using telekinesis, and all of a sudden he's a master of it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what. It's not all these weird force powers per se. It's just all of the force powers that Jason knew are suddenly being distributed to people who couldn't do them before,
right,
or weren't proficient in them.
Which initially leads Luke down a path of thinking maybe this is some sort of doomsday device in the Force that Jason left or Cadus left as he was passing on at the end of Legacy of the Force.
Yeah. And obviously we're mentioned at the end of the last book, the Lost Tribe of the Sith have deployed Vistara and a few of the tribe to meet Luke and Ben with Ship's help. Ship does kind of abandon them halfway. I think he's still got a bit of a soft spot for Ben through their interactions through Legacy of the Force. Ben obviously recognizes Ship's signature in the Force. So he knows something is happening, and I think that's what triggers him to go after Luke at that point in time. And it's again that kind of will of the Force. If he hadn't happened at that point in time, Abeloth may have taken him. So it's all the will of the Force, really. At the end of the day, they come back and they are absolutely exhausted. Like Luke has been in this state for
weeks. I think it was
weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. Ben's been out for 4 or 5 days getting him back, and they are suddenly attacked by the Lost Tribe of the Sith.
The way it happened was actually the Lost Tribe of the Sith with like a contingent of the Lost Tribe of the Sith were already in the Maw on Abeloth's planet because they were chasing after Ship, who started to hear Abeloth's call, and it's like a moth to flame. The ship is the intent is to go to the strongest will, and really you can't get a much stronger will than in the Force than Abeloth. So this contingent of the Lost Tribe were chasing after Ship. And it was then that they felt Luke's power because of some artifact that he held back in the Ankh-Ti homeworld, and they were able to surmise that he was coming to the Maw. They basically end up meeting on Sinkhole Station. It was Ship's presence coming to Abeloth's planet that Ben sensed and drove him to go in and to get Luke out of there. And right as he's pulling Luke out, that's when the Lost Tribe of the Sith contingent arrives at Sinkhole Station. And then that's when they start fighting. Luke and Ben win. The only one that's left is Vistara. So they take her into custody, and that's pretty much where the book ends.
Yes.
Ari Ross, who was basically like Vistara's boy crush, back on Kesh, gets killed. And instead of capturing Vistara, he lets her escape. Luke lets her escape, but he uses the Dathmiri blood trail.
That's it, yes.
On Vistara, so he can track her, and that's where the book ends. I'm sorry, that's where the book ends.
Yes.
So they didn't capture Vistara. Then that happens in one of the future books. I think in the next book, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, that would make sense. That would make sense given the blood trace, which is a very cool force power as well. I think Ben was getting worried about Luke fighting in his condition, and Vistara scores a hit and cuts his cheek, I want to say.
Yeah.
and Ben's about to step in, and then Luke just handles it,
right,
as Luke Skywalker is wanting to do
mm-hmm.
at this point in the timeline. But yeah, that's where I'm up to with it. That covers all 3 books. I'm really looking forward to the next 3.
And the heat definitely gets turned up for sure, in as you could expect in the last 6 books of the series.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to where this is going to go, and I can just see we've sort of cruised along setting story, and then we've jumped up a level for Abyss, and I can only see an upward trajectory from here in terms of, I think it helps that I've read Legacy of the Force, and so I think it's going to follow a similar vein of peaks and troughs, because it's a very similar series of writers as well. So I feel like I know what's coming, but at the same time, I haven't got a clue with what actually is coming. But I think I know the ups and downs of it all and how it's going to be structured, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I don't have much Star Wars that I'm not intimately familiar with, if I'm perfectly honest. This is one of the few series that I never finished, and I don't actually know what happens. I know the broad strokes of what happens, because I can't avoid spoilers for that long, unfortunately. But
I will say, without spoiling it for you, as you could expect, this whole series of events does resolve itself.
Of course, it's Star Wars.
Well, yeah, of course. And the way it resolves itself is really kind of cool and interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
I am looking forward to that. I do like the fact that they change up how it gets resolved, and it's not just this person dies and everything's great again. That does still come into it, but there's always a fallout, which I know we're not really going to get, because obviously Disney, but hopefully we get to explore the fallout a little bit within Disney and Ahsoka and Thrawn. But we'll see what happens. But Todd, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I am really looking forward to this journey, and I'm really glad that you're here with me on it to guide me through, like Luke Skywalker through the mind walkers.
Well, let's not get that crazy. I don't know how great of a guide I am. I just, like I told you as we were planning this chat, it's been a while since I've read it, but I have read it several times, and because it is this and Legacy of the Force are, as far as the extended series of 9-book series of novels, are probably my favorites. The New Jedi Order was good too, but there were just too many damn books. I mean, you're talking about
19 is a lot.
Yeah, 19 is a lot of books, and it's a lot of story to keep straight. And they certainly could have done it in a lot fewer novels. It almost, if there's a modern day Disney era day equivalent of storytelling, it's probably the absolute flood of material that came out with the High Republic. There was a lot of timeline jumping back and forth in that, and the thing that kind of kept me in the New Jedi Order is it was more linear as far as timeline went. They weren't jumping back and forth. This book series, the Fate of the Jedi, is probably, of the multi book story arcs, is probably my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say Legacy of the Force was really what got me back into reading Star Wars books at one point in time. And I read a lot whilst I was waiting for those individual books to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as we got closer to the Disney acquisition, I read these 3 and then kind of dropped off. I may have even started the next one. I can't remember if I just didn't quite finish Abyss, or I started the next one and didn't go any further. We'll find out when I start listening to it. I'll either recognize it or I won't. And I went back, and I remember there being like an essential list of the New Jedi Order books, because I was just looking at this going, where do I begin? And there are sort of 10 to 12 essential books from the 19 books to really give you the story, which just makes it that much more achievable, really, more than anything. Like dedicating however long to 19 books is an undertaking, right, for anyone. But yeah, that's might be something I do at some point. Who knows? I doubt I'm ever going to have time to do 19 books. It might take me several years to do it with everything else coming out.
I had a lot of bus rides back and forth between the Chicago suburbs and Chicago downtown that I was able to kind of blaze through those books. Yeah,
I read a lot of my Legacy of the Force on the train. So yeah, it was a good time to just sit down and read. But yeah, it was a good way to get through it. Now it's audiobooks on long drives. So how times change.
Exactly.
But no, I really, really appreciate it, as I say. And where can people find you elsewhere other than the Star Wars universe and the SPARC Jedi Council?
Well, other than that, that's pretty much where you can find me. Also, I am a Rebel Force Radio VIP, so occasionally I will host or co-host a Q&A podcast session with Jimmy Mack. I've got several episodes out there. If you go to you do have to be a Patreon subscriber of Rebel Force Radio to hear them, but it's well worth the cost of entry. And also, I am an occasional contributor to Mocktails from the Cantina. Our friend Christian Mocht, who is a Star Wars fan, documentarian, has a couple of pretty great fan documentaries, The Force Among Us and The Force Within Us. And he's perpetually saying, I'm going to get to the third of the trilogy, but as those of us that know Christian well, he is very, very not ready for that yet. I mean, he's like, he gets things to a certain point, and then getting them over the finish line, regular life, work and everything just gets in the way of it. Cause obviously he's not that's not his main job. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me. You can find me on Facebook. I'm out there, hit me up. And, in 2027, you'll find me in Los Angeles at Star Wars Celebration for sure.
Excellent. So if you want to hear more of Todd's dulcet tones, it is behind a paywall. And you can go to LA in 2027 for Celebration. Excellent. So thank you everyone for listening to this, and I hope you'll join us next time when we come back together to review the next 3 books, which I must admit I haven't even looked at what they're called yet. I've been emotionally recovering from Trials of the Jedi recently, and I'm not ready to quite pull the trigger on purchasing some more yet. I am not saying anything else. It is just an emotional roller coaster.
Will I feel gutted afterwards?
Absolutely gutted.
I'm sorry. I apologize for my excessively bad British accent.
We always encourage it. You should hear my American. But no, and as always, until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.